Hello, hello, and welcome back. It's Virginia. I'm your host. Thank you for joining us. There's a lot to talk about today. We'll be covering the Real Housewives of Orange County, episode 6, and we'll talk about the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City trailer. I'll tell you what I did this weekend, but first, let me tell you about some of the things I've been watching. Did anybody watch Fit for TV on Netflix? It was the 3-part Netflix documentary on the show The Biggest Loser that used to be on back in the day. I was fascinated. I sat there and watched all 3 episodes in a row, and I realized, you guys, we've really evolved. Listen, we're still struggling as a society. We're still judgy. We are still very much putting people in buckets, for lack of a better comparison. But we used to just full blown fat shame, and we had a television show on prime time as the vehicle to do that. I think that this show started off as having good intentions, but they do interview the producers throughout, and they're very clear on the fact that they were trying to make a show and not necessarily try to help the weight epidemic in the country. And the statistics are startling. I believe the number was like 42% of Americans were obese back in 2006 when this show started. And now it's something like 54% of Americans. So we're not doing better. We just stopped shaming one another about it, I guess. The Biggest Loser, if it was before your time, was a show with Jillian Michaels and Bob Harper, and they were fitness trainers for a group of overweight contestants who would join the show in an effort to lose the greatest amount of body fat in a given amount of time. It was usually around 6 months, and they would be sequestered at a ranch. They were subjected to torturous workouts, almost equally torturous diets. I guess there was a doctor that was overseeing the program, but he was part of the documentary. And, you know, he tells us that he had very, very little control over what happened on the series. The coaches allegedly would tell the contestants to lie to the doctor about how much calorie intake they had, and in fact would then encourage them to have no more than 800 calories a day while working out almost sometimes up to 8 hours a day. So it was highly dysfunctional. There was an alleged rumor that crossed over into the show in the later seasons, whereby it was alleged that Jillian Michaels was giving the contestants copious amounts of caffeine to curb their appetite. She later comes on the show and does not apologize, but says that she thinks that it was better to have caffeine supplements than some other options that others were using, and therefore did not apologize for blatantly breaking the rules. The doctor tells us that caffeine was strictly prohibited on the show altogether. So there was some weird stuff going on behind the scenes, a lot of humiliation, a lot of embarrassment, a lot of storylines that were never made part of the actual show at the time. And so it made for the show that we were watching at the time. I mean, I watched the show. I'm embarrassed to say that I thought it was actually helping people, and it wasn't until the later seasons. But the first few seasons, I kind of thought this is kind of a great concept. And then, you know, it did definitely jump the shark later on. And it also just became kind of a toxic show, which is why I stopped watching it. And I think we became more don't come at me for this term, but woke as a society and stopped body shaming people. As the show went on longer and longer, we as a society did less and less to showcase people who struggled with weight. Therefore, other shows became more popular and reality TV started spinning off into the Housewives and all of the other things that we have today. All of this is neither here nor there, but my biggest takeaway, and I think you guys should watch this. I think it was a good 3-part documentary. The biggest mind-boggling moment for me, and I had heard about this, throughout the years, but to see it all on one show was pretty striking. The majority of these people gained all of their weight back, and in some cases more. We had a season 8 winner, Danny, who had lost like over 230 something pounds, I believe. And in case you're wondering, the grand prize was $250,000 for the winner. So there was a sense of competition that sometimes overshadowed the sense of what is healthy and what is right. And that comes across pretty strongly in the documentary as well. But the big takeaway was that the weight didn't stay off. It was lost in very unhealthy ways. And some of the contestants that were interviewed who are thin now report that it's because of GLP-1s. So I don't know that having a show like this was something that we ever needed, but we all watched it, and it was definitely a sign of the time. So I was watching that. I watched that over the weekend. And then there is The Better Sister, which I don't even know how I came upon this show, but it's a limited series on Prime TV. And it's about two sisters, Nikki and Chloe, who are investigating the murder of Adam, who, at the risk of getting really complicated, was at one time married to both Nikki and Chloe, and their son Ethan is the one accused of his dad Adam's murder. So there's a lot more to this show, and I think it's really interesting. I think I'm about maybe 5 episodes into it now, so I really do want to get to the rest of it, but I really liked this one. I thought it had a interesting storyline, a lot of twists and turns. I think that it's one to watch. It's 8 episodes, so it's not a huge commitment. And, when you get tired of watching Bravo for a while, it's a nice one to switch over onto. And if you really want to shut your brain off, Netflix is back with Perfect Match. And some of the notables this season are AD. We have Clayton from The Bachelor, and we have Rachel from The Bachelorette. So I'm not really watching. It's one of those that watches me while I'm cooking dinner or doing chores, and sometimes the vacuum cleaner's on, so I don't even hear the dialogue. But we'll see what happens with this. If you don't want to sit down and watch anything deep, this is certainly full of eye candy, full of nonsense, and I don't think I'm going to watch it. I just thought I'd mention it to you guys. And then I did watch the better part of the very highly talked about show on Netflix, Hunting Wives, with what are the girls' names? Well, it's based in Texas, and it's Sophie, who comes to town with her husband, who is transferred for a job, and meets Margot, an affluent wife who has a group of ladies that all get together at Margot's mountain home on Fridays, and they get together for purposes of hunting and a lot of other antics. Eventually, there's a murder that takes place, and There is an investigation, and I'll leave it there. There's a lot of sex on this show, a lot of nudity, a lot of it's very much soft porn. It's sometimes hard to watch. I'm not judging one way or the other. I'm just giving you guys a heads up. This isn't one you sit down and watch with the kids. And let's move on. You guys, the Salt Lake City trailer dropped this last week, and it looks like it's going to be an interesting season. Okay, I'm going to do some quick takeaways. Whitney's red hair is very striking. In the off season, she colored her hair red to match her daughter's, and it was kind of to make her daughter feel included. And then she decided she liked it and she wanted to keep it. So what do you guys think of Whitney's red hair? And then we have a lot of Bronwyn rumors that surfaced over the off season, and it looks like Bronwyn is continuing to keep things interesting because she engages with several people. We find out from Mary that Robert Jr. is not 100% cured or okay. Like many that struggle from addiction and abuse issues, he has good days and bad days, so we'll find out what that's all about. And Mary and Angie, it seems, may have a falling out and their love affair may be over. The ladies all go to Greece, which I'm excited to see, and lots of lies this season. Lisa and Bronwyn continue to go at it. No surprise there. Angie and Lisa continue to go at it. No surprise there. Is there trouble in Lisa's marriage? That's what's alluded to in the trailer. And so many costumes. These girls really like a costume party, a theme, more so than many of the other Housewives franchises. So we'll see. That's coming soon. I believe it starts in September. If I remember correctly, the date was the 15th. I'll double check and confirm that for you. And yeah, we'll see what happens in Salt Lake City this season. But we had a trailer. Meanwhile, in Orange County, the ladies are in New Orleans. And this episode really heated up. So we see that the ladies head over to Cafe Du Monde, and Tamra is pretty triggered. She tells the girls that the last time they were there was a few weeks before when she was there with Teddy. And that was right before Teddy had fallen down the marble stairs and then come back and gone to the hospital and found out that she had brain tumors and stage 4 cancer. So it was a hard moment for her, and it's very visceral. You can see that Tamra is not the same Tammy Sue that we're used to. And even in those moments back in the days when she was going through things with Simon, and she would go out of her way to overcompensate and show the audience that she was okay. This is different from that. This is something that you can tell she can't cover up very well. And maybe she's old enough to know that she doesn't need to, that it's okay to feel what she's feeling. But they have a conversation about the fact that the whole group is kind of split up. And then Shannon comes full blown at Katie and says, I don't feel safe hanging around you. I don't feel comfortable. And I don't want to be on the same excursion as you. So Katie just decides to leave and join the other group who are at a French market, the French market, which is the open air market that, by the way, looks incredibly cool. And having come off of a fabulous European vacation, it reminds me how much I love exploring local markets. It's something you can do almost anywhere you visit. They have a farmer's market or an open air swap meet or some sort of bazaar or something almost anywhere I have been in the world. And it made me realize that that's quickly becoming one of my favorite things to do. This French market was no exception. But Katie gets there and tells the other girls, who is the Gretchen and Jen side of things, that Shannon made her feel like she shouldn't be there, told her that she felt unsafe, so she just decided to leave. And the girls don't take that very well because they don't understand how Shannon is okay coexisting with Tamra, who called her all of these horrible names last season on the heels of her DUI, and yet she can't even, as Katie put it, have a damn beignet with her. And no, I guess she can't. I guess Shannon's tolerance has gotten to be less than it was. Or at least when it comes to you, there's zero tolerance, Katie. And so we see Emily talking to some lady on the phone who is apparently the chairperson for this doggie parade that they're having in New Orleans. And Emily is very much a advocate of pets, especially dogs. She fosters herself. She posts all the time on Instagram. She works with certain shelters. So it's no surprise that when we get to New Orleans, she contacts this organizer and asks if the girls can join this doggy parade that they're having. So out on the streets of New Orleans they go. The music's blaring, the laughs and giggles are all over the place. The cute little dogs are there for adoption. And I don't know why we had that scene, but okay. So then next stop is the visit with Voodoo Mary. Well, things start to get a little weird, and I get where this could be uncomfortable for some, but Gretchen, Tamra, and Shannon decide to leave because she pulls out these little dolls which look like voodoo dolls, and she has all of these different powders and dusts and gravel and interesting things that along with decorations that she puts out in different stations for you to decorate and name your doll. And the three ladies that left didn't feel comfortable. I'm not sure that I would have stayed for this one either, but it was interesting, I guess. Voodoo Mary seems a little, I don't know, she gave me chills, but that's just my opinion. And she's definitely eccentric and very much believes in her craft, and goes on to set the ladies up in this outside table where they're making these dolls. Meanwhile, we have the oddest pairing. When Gretchen, Tamra, and Shannon decide to leave, now they're stuck on camera together. Well, it's not very long before a conversation takes place between Tamra and Gretchen, and Tamra tells Gretchen that she heard that Katie allegedly had told a blogger that Gretchen told her that Tamra had roofied her all those years ago. Remember Naked Wasted? Go back and watch it. It's worth watching. In my opinion, it still holds up as one of the funniest Housewives episodes ever. And I know that in this day and age, it probably would not hold up and would come across as some sort of abuse and some sort of not politically correct thing. But again, you guys, sometimes I think that as a society, we've gotten way too sensitive. Anyway, back in the Naked Wasted episode, allegedly, Gretchen told Katie that she had been roofied. Well, Gretchen loses her mind. You can see she's shocked by the allegation. And clearly, in my opinion, it's not something that came out of Gretchen's mouth. She's trying to process this at the moment as the cameras are filming her, and you can kind of see it. What bothers me in these moments, and I'm all for Tamra letting the cat out of the bag, it makes for good TV, and say what you will about Tammy Sue, but listen, I think she makes for good Housewives episodes, and this is no exception. The part that bugs me is when the camera pans to her and she has this smug, very self-satisfied look in her face. If you are, in fact, going through it with Teddy, you have to be having an awakening of sorts. So which is it? Are you evolving? Are you changing? Are you growing? Or are you pumping out the shit and then quietly smirking and laughing like the Tammy Sue of old? I don't know which is which, but I did not like that in this moment. Well, Gretchen is like, no, I didn't say anything. They agree that it's going to be brought up later, and Gretchen wants to get to the bottom of it just as much as Tamra does, and it gives Shannon all of the ammunition to hate Katie in perpetuity and all of the gas to push the buttons that she needs to continue in her fight against Katie. So this is not going to be good as we start to approach the dinner that evening. But half of the group takes off to dinner. We know what group it is. It's the Emily and the Gina, and the other group is sitting in the hotel room. I guess Gretchen's still struggling to process this, and so Katie comes to join her and she wants to confront it head on. So she just asks her if she said it, and Katie just shockingly and vehemently denies it, and oh, no way. And then Jen comes in and adds to the narrative that Tamra's just trying to stir up the shit, which is a possibility, but it gives Jen the opening that she needs to say, I'm going to bring up the picture that she unnecessarily brought up, and we're going to address that tonight too. So this is not going to be a good dinner. It's not one that I want to go sit at. I don't care how good the food is. They're not going to get to eat it anyway because shit's about to break out. And sure enough, half of the group shows up at dinner and they start talking. And it is not long before Tamra starts to be really, really rude. And when the camera pans to her, it is very clear that something is not right with Tamra. Well, Gina is not having it. And I'm so proud of Gina in this moment. She steps up and says, you know what? This is my party. This is my table. And I'm not going to allow you to speak to my guests this way. You're being rude and I'm not going to have it. And I kind of loved it. Gina, chef's kiss. But Tamra loses it, and you can tell there's just something not right. And then even Heather steps in and is like, but Tamra, and Tamra's just F-bombing and, F off and this. And her words are a little slow. Her eyelids are a little droopy. And the girls allege that she's on something and that maybe it's not the right night to have this conversation. And even Jennifer kind of backs off because it's weird. And for no good reason, Heather says something that Tamra doesn't like, and she gets up and walks off. She heads over to the elevator, and I don't know if she's standing there because she expected somebody to follow her, but eventually producers ask her, what's going on, and she just says that she's kind of sick of it. She starts to kind of try to take off her mic, and then we see Heather follow her, and she turns on Heather too, who we all know all season long has been the only person that has had her back regardless of any crazy that Tamra has come out with. So for her to turn on Heather at this moment and tell her fuck off, well, Heather's pretty mind blown by this too, and goes back to the table, mouth agape, explaining that Tamra walked off. Within seconds, we start to get texts at the table and alerts that two things. Tamra had told Gina to fuck off and had posted on Instagram that it was a long run, but when life gets serious, you don't need this kind of bullshit. I'm totally paraphrasing. You guys remember it was when Tamra quit in real time during the filming of the New Orleans trip last, I think it was like earlier in the springtime that this came out. And we all knew that she had legit quit the show, like just walked out. I do not think that this was performative. I do not think this was for a moment. She actually did fly back home. And it was Teddy, according to Teddy, who convinced her to go back on the show. And I remember listening to that podcast episode of Teddy and Tamra's podcast where she explained it to her. Tamra explained to her, like, you're going through all of this and I want to be here with you. And these bitches are fighting about petty things and I just can't handle it. And Teddy told her point blank, yeah, but that's no reason to quit the show. The show needs you and I need you to go back to the show. So I believe what Tamra did was, in fact, in the heat of the moment. We also saw over this last weekend, after this episode aired, that Tamra, and I believe that this was a real post, but that Tamra admits to having mixed Xanax with alcohol. She said she was really struggling to deal with what Teddy was going through, was really nervous about going to the dinner, and consequently popped a Xanny and then proceeded to walk around with, we know that was vodka in that glass, Tamra. Nice try with telling Shannon it's water. Even Shannon knew it was vodka. I mean, when you know, Shannon would know. All of that to say that we were right. She was clearly under the influence of something, and in my opinion, would have taken on the battle rather than have walked off had she not been under the influence and way more than preoccupied with her friend's condition. So I don't know what to make of all of this. It made for a very, very exciting episode with a to be continued cliffhanger. And, spoiler alert, we all know that Tamra does not leave the show, but there's a lot that gets left up in the air. Will Jen confront Tamra about the photo? Will Tamra come back and tell everybody why she walked off? Will Gretchen confront Katie about this alleged rumor? Will we ever hear from this podcaster who we now know to be Kiki Monique and her side of what's going on? I have not had a chance to listen to her podcast, but has anybody heard what her take is on this whole thing? And oh, by the way, as an aside, all of the unjust and unfair comments and stonewalling that we've received from some of these unnamed housewives being podcasters and bloggers, you guys, Kiki Monique is proving what I said earlier to be true. We are not going to do anything, at least the better part of those of us out here in the podcast and blog world are not going to go out of our way to do anything to intentionally hurt someone or spread lies and maliciousness just for ratings. I know I'm not going to do that. So the fact that some housewives have tagged podcasters the scum of the earth just because we sit in front of a microphone and talk about your show, but then you can have not just one, but 2 or 3 successful podcasts that you sit behind a microphone and talk about week to week. I don't know. It reads inauthentic and it leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And I'm not going to name names because I'm new in this podcast world and I don't want to alienate the entire network known as Bravo and or Peacock. But it just bugs me that it's okay for you guys to say what you want. But when Kiki Monique, who allegedly was told all of these things, does not come to the surface, does not take the moment to say, look, I'm on this Housewives episode and here's my moment to, bust through to the mainstream. She's doing what she does. She's good at what she does. She's been doing it for years. And she is not going to sacrifice her good name or her reputation to spread some likely bullshit lie that some desperate housewife or housekeeper or ex-babysitter wants her to spread. So I just take that as my opportunity to give you guys the little rant that I've been wanting to give for a while about how sometimes we podcasters get a bad rap. We were left with the to be continued. I'll be here to continue it for you next week. And until then, we'll see what happens. I don't know if we are still in New Orleans. I don't think we are. I think we end up back in Orange County and we take off from there. But I'll be there to watch and I'll be there to tell you all about it. So last Saturday, we met friends at Europa Village to head to Bolero, which is their Spanish restaurant. And I think I've talked about Bolero before, but I have not reviewed their tour of Europa, which is their big showstopper menu item, if you will. So I'm going to do that today, and I'm going to tell you all about our evening. Well, we met our friends in the VIP lounge because we're all members, and we were going to stick at Europa at Bolero, but my gosh, the place was packed. Very rarely do any of us go on a Saturday, but we just got a hankering to head out for a Saturday night dinner. And so what better place to go to than the place that we're members at? Because if you are a member there, you can enjoy a free glass of wine. So that's what we did, and instead walked over to C'est la Vie, which is Europa's French winery. And at C'est la Vie, we had a glass of Petite Syrah, which was pretty yummy. If you have not had their Petite Syrah, go give it a try. I'm not normally one for French wines, but this was one that I really enjoyed. So it was just as packed over at C'est la Vie, and Vienza looked like it was pretty busy, which is their Italian winery that you pass along the way. So all in all, a very busy afternoon and evening at Europa Village in Temecula on Saturday. But after our glass of wine at C'est la Vie, I asked the group to come on back to the Bolero side so I could have another glass of wine before we headed into dinner. And when we walked back, we found out our table was ready. So that was cool. One of my favorite things was that we were seated inside along the cushiony booth chairs that I really enjoy. And I was glad to not have to sit outside just because it was a change of pace. It gives you a different environment. And our favorite server and one of my 4 beautiful sons, Matthew, was going to be taking care of us this evening. So we were excited. Our friends really love Matthew too. And we had called ahead to make sure we were going to have who, in my opinion, of course, is the best server in the place. And indeed, he took amazing care of us. We each brought a bottle of wine, which they uncorked for us. I believe there is a corkage fee, but if you are a member and you bring a Bolero wine, then I believe it's waived. So that was pretty cool. We started off with our Bolero Monastrell and decided that we were going to order something different. We always have the Caesar salad, which is one of my favorite things there because of the presentation. But I think I've talked about that before. So this time, Susan and I decided to order something different. So we ordered Ensalada de lechuga mantecosa at $15. It consists of buttered lettuce, pickled fennel, manchego, red radish, pomegranate jewels with a creamy tarragon dressing. We also decided to order the ensalada sandia, which is honey lime infused watermelon topped with whipped burrata and mint, also $15. And then, of course, for our entree, we decided to go with the Tour de Europa, which, get ready for this, it is amazing. It is a 52-ounce dry-aged grass-fed tomahawk steak served tableside with your choice of paella. The paella we chose was the mariscos and chorizo, and the paella was bomba rice cooked to perfection with shrimp, scallops, mussels, orange roughy, and pork chorizo sausage. And of course, lovely saffron and lemon. And so this thing is a showstopper, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. First, I want to talk about the salads. So the ensalada de lechuga, which translated means lettuce salad, is presented just kind of rustically. It's very pretty. It was delicious. The pickled fennel, in my opinion, made the salad. The pomegranate little jewels was a nice little burst of tart. And the tarragon dressing was the perfect accompaniment to this fresh, crisp, crunchy, tasty salad. I thought it was a lovely way to start because we were going to be having a very meaty, very heavy meal. And the watermelon salad was everything. It is these hearts of watermelon about 3 to 4 inches thick, cut in a round. It is infused with this yummy, citrusy tasting dressing that comes kind of drizzled around the bottom as well. And then topped with a nice portion of whipped burrata cheese. And it's infused with a little bit of mint. And it just is so creamy. This was just a lovely, refreshing bite, not too sweet. The dressing that it comes with just sets it off. I am going to struggle now when I go there because this may be my always have to order salad when they have it. From what I understand, they don't always have it because they only serve it when the watermelon is really, really nice. But if they have it, I definitely suggest you try that. So we opened the Monastrell. It was delicious. Daniel thought it had a lovely oaky, kind of peppery taste. We felt the earthiness of it all. And my friend Susan does not like truffle. So I did not want, they say if somebody's going to taste a wine, not to have them read the description or to tell them what your palate tasted because wine tastes different on everyone's palate. So I did not want to implant truffle, but that's kind of the takeaway I had. And then when we all discussed it, we came up with earthy. So it made sense that we all kind of came up with this earthy taste at the back end of this wine. It was delicious. It was a medium bodied red. And I thought it was a perfect way to start because we were going to be having a big old hunk of meat. And then Susan and Daniel shared with us their 2020 C'est la vie Merlot Reserva, which was also very delicious. Our sommelier, Joseph, came over and decanted both bottles of wine, of course, one at a time, and served up lovely glasses for us to enjoy while we waited for our tour the Europa. And as a reminder, if you want to order this, it takes about 45 minutes to prepare. So you probably want to order it as soon as you get there so that you have time to enjoy a couple of glasses of wine and maybe an appetizer or a salad. There was some music outside this evening. So for us, it was nice because we wanted to enjoy our conversation. Sometimes if you're seated too close to the music and it's a smaller group, it's kind of hard to have a conversation. But there was music both there and then outside at the patio. So they had two forms of entertainment this particular evening, and that was pretty cool. And then it came time for the big presentation. So they roll over this wooden cart that has a hook hanging from the top, and the bone of the tomahawk has a hole drilled in it. So it's hanging from that hook, and it is still hot and sizzling from coming out of what I'm assuming is the oven. But the server, in this case, my lovely boy Matthew, comes over and slathers it with compound butter, which he then, uses a torch to melt over the beautiful pan of paella that is laying right underneath this dripping, gorgeous hunk of meat. And after he fires on it for a little while, we ordered ours medium rare. Then he goes through and prepares the paella and cuts it off of the bone, cuts the tomahawk off of the bone, slices it, serves it with these tongs, and then separates the paella into 2 portions for either side of the table with the perfect amount of scallop, mussels, shrimp, and chorizo in each bowl, so everybody gets a little bit of all of the deliciousness. And of course, Joseph was there just in time to top off our glasses with our reserva for our lovely entree. Now, first of all, the meat, tender, delicious, definitely perfectly cooked. The butter, an amazing addition to make it nice and rich and tasty, but the drippings that fell into the paella, oh my gosh, you guys, it was so good. The scallops, perfectly appointed. The mussels, there were both green and black mussels. I had one of each. I preferred the green. And this is just, it was so good. Nice size portions. Of course, we're eating with 2 very hearty meat eaters, so there was not an ounce of beef left over. I will say that, with all tomahawks, there was a good amount of fat, so you lose some of the ounces to the fat, but you want that fat to cook with your meat so that you have the flavor. So you can't really complain about that too much. But all of the meat went, and we did have some paella left over. And of course, my Maya was going to be the benefactor of the lovely tomahawk bone that was left over, which Matthew promptly took in the kitchen, beautifully wrapped, removed the knuckle so it would be all good and ready for Maya the next day. Well, we took our time. We cherished the company. The conversation was lovely. We laughed and enjoyed all of our meal. I highly, highly suggest that if you want to have a fancy show-stopping dinner, you head to Bolero's Tour de Europa. It is $247. I thought it was worth every penny. If you think about it, it comes down to about $75 a person, and that's pretty much what you're going to pay for dinner anywhere when you go for fine dining these days. So that's my tip. If you want to bring your bottle of wine, they'll charge you a corkage fee unless it's from Bolero Winerie. So you could also show up there, buy a bottle of wine, do a tasting, and then bring your wine in for dinner. And if you're a member, they'll uncork it for you. So I got to meet a lot of my son's colleagues. I got to talk to the new food and beverage director. We enjoyed a lot of people stopping by our table, a lot of fun laughs, met a lot of good people. It was a great evening. The weather was perfect. It was just a lovely evening in Temecula. And after what did not seem like 2.5 hours, we enjoyed a banana brulee among the 4 of us and headed the heck out of Dodge. We really enjoyed our dinner. We enjoyed the company. I thought the service was amazing. And although I am partial, anyone who is served by my son will probably say the same thing. The place was jumping and they were all keeping all the balls up in the air. Kudos to the staff there at Bolero. You guys did a great job. I appreciate everything that you guys do to make us feel special when we head in there. And that was my review. I would say we got treated like royalty, but you will be treated just as well if you go in there. Make sure you make a reservation if it's a Saturday night. The place was jumping. It's not easy to get into. Even when we left, there was still a line outside. So I hope that you'll join us for another episode of the Living on the Verge podcast. I'll be back with one soon. We're going to be covering Hunt for Love, whatever else I get myself into as the week unfolds. And I will be having some more guests coming up in the next few weeks. We still have a few episodes left in our summer series. I'm excited, you guys. It is turning out to be a good week already. I'm meeting my brother for lunch at my favorite restaurant ever since I was 10 years old. I'll tell you all about it. Until then, I hope you guys have a great week. I am really excited that it's not supposed to be as hot this week as it was last week. Enjoy your week, stay safe, and I'll be here living on the verge.